Welcome back, boys and girls, to our Fairy Tale Knowledge 9 domain. Here's Lesson 2, a story titled Rumpelstiltskin. Let's talk a little bit about fantasy versus reality. Fantasy is something that's imagined, and reality is a real event or situation. Take a look at this picture. Is this picture something that's fantasy or reality? If you guessed fantasy, you're correct. How about this picture? Sleeping Beauty, the enchanted princess. Is this fantasy or reality? This was a picture of fantasy, something imagined. What about this picture? This is a picture of the royal family. Is this fantasy or reality? That picture is a real event. That is the royal family. Boys and girls, as this knowledge domain continues, we will add more images to this chart with each fairy tale we hear, and we will figure out if they're fantasy or reality. Today, there's going to be a problem caused by the spinning wheel. We need to discover the solution in the story today and listen to how this version may be different from ones you know. Rumpelstiltskin was the title of our story. Do you know anything about this story? Let's get ready to go on another fairy tale adventure together. Once upon a time, there was a poor miller who had a beautiful daughter. She was so beautiful and clever that he could not help boasting about her. A miller is a person who grinds grain into flour. This miller boasts or speaks very proudly about his daughter, saying she's clever. This means she is smart and able to figure things out quickly. One day the miller happened to come before the king, and to impress the king, he began boasting about his daughter. And before he knew it, he found himself saying that his daughter was so amazing and so wonderful. Why, she could even spin gold out of straw. That, said the king, is a talent worth having. Bring your daughter to me, and let us see what she can do. Remember, thread and yarn are made by spinning plant parts or animals' wool. Do you think the daughter can really spin gold out of straw? When the girl was brought to the palace, the king led her to a room that was almost full of straw. He pointed to the spinning wheel and said, "Get to work. You must spin this straw into gold by early morning, or else." The poor miller's daughter, of course, she could not spin straw into gold. What else could she do? She could think of nothing, and in the end, she sat down and began to cry. And that's when, all of the sudden, click, the door opened, and in walked a little man. "Good evening, miller's daughter," said the man. "Why are you crying?" "Because," she answered, "I must spin all this straw into gold before morning, and I don't know how." Then the little man came close to her and whispered, "What will you give me if I spin it for you?" "Why, I'll give you my necklace," she stammered. The little man took the necklace, stood at the spinning wheel, and whir, 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 he spun, and by sunup, all the straw had been spun into gold. When the king arrived at sunrise, He was amazed, but the sight of all that gold made the greed for more grow in him. So the king took the miller's daughter to a larger room, filled with yet more straw, and he told her that she must spin all this into gold in one night. And again, the girl did not know what to do and sat down to cry. When click, the door opened, and in walked the little man. Crying again, I see, he said. So I suppose you have to spin all this into gold too. What will you give me if I do it for you? The ring from my finger, answered the girl. So the little man took the ring, stood at the spinning wheel, and whir, 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 he spun and he spun and he spun, and by sunup all the straw had been spun into gold. When the king arrived, he was overjoyed at the sight, but hungry for still more gold. So he took the miller's daughter to an even larger room filled with straw and said, "Spin all this in one night, and if you succeed, well then, you shall be my wife." The king had hardly left the room when, click, the door opened, and in came the little man, asking, "What will you give me if I spin all this straw for you one more time?" "I have nothing left to give," the girl answered sadly. "Then promise me this," said the little man. "Promise me that when you are queen, you will give me your first child." The miller's daughter thought there was very little chance that she would ever be queen, and so she promised, and the little man set to work at once. By morning, the gold was piled so high that it reached the ceiling. When the king arrived, he was so pleased to see all the gold he wanted. He married the miller's daughter and made her queen. In a year's time, the king and queen had a fine little baby. She thought no more about the little man or her promise to him. Then one day, as she sat alone in her room, rocking her baby, click, the door opened, and in walked the little man who said, "Now it is time for you to give me what you promised me." The queen, filled with fear, held her baby tightly. "Please," she said, "I will give you all the riches of the kingdom. Only leave me my child." But the little man said, "No, I would rather have a living being than all the treasures in the world." Then the queen began to weep and wail, and the little man felt pity for her. "Okay, okay, I will give you this one chance," he said. "In 3 days, if you can guess my name, then you may keep your child." And then he was gone as quickly as he had come. The queen lay awake all night thinking of all of the names she had ever heard. She sent a messenger to ride through the land and collect all the names that could be found. And when the little man came the next day, she tried all that she had been able to think of. Alexander, Balthazar, Casper, Doolittle, Eggleston, Ferdinand, and many more. But after each, the little man only said, "That is not my name." The next day, the queen sent servants all around the kingdom to find the most unusual names. And when the little man came, she tried them. "Are you called Sheepshanks, Roast Ribs, Snickerdoodle, Groucho, Winklehopper?" But after each, The little man only said, "That is not my name." On the third and last day, the queen was worried sick. She held her child tight and wondered what to do, when Kalik opened the door and in walked, nope, not the little man, but the messenger. The queen had sent in search of names. He bowed to the queen and said, "My lady, as I passed through the woods last night, I came to a high hill, and near it was a little house, and outside the house a fire was burning, and around the fire danced a funny little man, and he hopped up and down, and he sang, 'Today I brew, tomorrow I bake, and then the fair queen's child I shall take, and no one can deny my claim, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name.'" The messenger left, and almost as soon as he had gone, the little man arrived. The queen greeted him by asking, "Is your name Jack?" "That is not my name." "Then you are called Harry." "That is not my name." "Then perhaps," said the queen, "your name is Rumpelstiltskin." "No, no, who told you that?" cried the little man, and in his anger he stamped with his right foot so hard it went into the ground, right up to his waist. Then he stamped with his other foot and went deep into the ground, way over his head, and the queen and her child never feared him again. The end.